And of course, it's my great honor now to invite His Excellency Emmanuel Macron to join us on stage. Thank you. So, my first question for you, President Macron. From Louis Pisan's influential work on the development of TCP and the IP protocol to Alan Turing's foundations of computing, France and UK have always been global leaders in technological progress. How do you see the strengths of France being built upon to continue that progress, to continue to compete globally as the technological race really builds across the world?
Thank you very much, and thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Minister, for your words and your very clear program and commitment. And thank you, Mr. President, for hosting us and welcoming us in your university. And I think the title you decided to adopt, I mean, from science to growth, is a very good one, and is probably the best answer to your question. When we look at the challenge, it's clear that I think it's not just because I'm here, but UK and France are probably the two nations to be part of the race and leading the race in Europe. But we are lagging behind, both the US and China. Let's be lucid. And the big question for all of us is how to be part of the competition and indeed to de-risk our model and not to be dependent on US or Chinese solutions. And the first one is science, science, science. And investing in science and fundamental science is absolutely a necessity. And I want just to emphasize this point because it's a very important one. And I'm very pleased by your mention of CNRS. And I know that a lot of research centers in France will sign partnerships during this trip. But fundamental science remains very important. And obviously, technological research as well and so on. The second point is training people. I think our two countries have the chance and the merit to train a lot of data scientists, mathematicians, and so on. So we have the skills, and we were used to train these skills. And we have to follow up and increase. And part of the AI program we have, and since 2018, the first AI plan, very clearly we launched additional training programs in order to have more and more talents, because it's clear that it is one of the critical issues. The third point is to be sure that we have the right ecosystem. And this is here the perfect illustration of what we need. Having public and private labs, but having large companies working with these labs, with startups, and an innovative ecosystem. And I think our two countries are probably the best-in-class ecosystem in Europe. But we are still lagging behind the US as well, if we are totally honest, by the necessity we have to increase the number of startups, but to have much more scale-up opportunities, because the level of our tickets remain clearly behind what is on the US side. And this is why I think we need this big AI program on both sides of the channel. But this is why we need a proper European approach. And capital market union for the European Union, but all the links and capital markets is beyond borders. But having a real financing ecosystem to be able to finance much more our innovation, and especially those who are very demanding in terms of capital, is absolutely critical. And as long as we will be too much dependent on investors in the US or big public and private investment in China, it will be very difficult to consolidate a proper European ecosystem and a Franco-British ecosystem. So a better integration and the scale-up of our financing solutions is absolutely critical. The fourth point is about the infrastructure. You mentioned the AI summit. We all announced, I mean, completely crazy figures when you are normal people. I mean, when you have just for one project, one plan, something like a dozen of billion euro being invested. But what we need is clearly computing capacities. And as Europeans, we're still dependent on the computing capacities. And for these guys to train their model, I mean, it was very difficult to just to rely on our own computing capacity, because where we represent 20% of the requests, we had 3 to 5% of the capacities. We are bridging this gap, and we announced, both in UK and France, a lot of additional capacities precisely to train our model and to compute and so on, but this is absolutely critical. It will be impossible to completely kill our dependencies on this track. Why? Because when we speak about this infrastructure, you need to have the packaging of the chips in order to build the AI factories. So we are building AI factories, we are investing, we are attracting investors, but the packaging is for more than 80% of the market made by NVIDIA. So this is why we are attracting NVIDIA, and we signed a great partnership between Mistral AI and NVIDIA. So we go upstream. And after that, when you look at the chips, you need Foxconn or TSMC, but very few Taiwanese companies. So we have to work with these companies to de-risk our model, otherwise we will remain totally dependent on them. So it's clearly one of the critical areas where we have to team up with your country, but as well where we have to accelerate our own research. Because all these guys learned their technology and the chips industry in Europe, by the way. And I would say the last point is to be sure that we precisely go downstream as well. And we share this innovation, and this innovation is, precisely improve the efficiency, the productivity, and transform the different verticals, from energy to life sciences, and so on. And this is where our capacity precisely to accelerate the ownership of all this innovation, but as well, as you mentioned, the way to accelerate our ability to use AI and AI disruptions in other sectors is absolutely critical. I could detail, but I was already too long, but this is why I'm very happy to be here, because DeepMind is clearly a great example of how to make such an innovation a game changer, and what you are doing in life sciences, for instance, is, on my last point, one of the game changers to be much more independent, and where the AI race could be clearly won. And Mistral AI is on the LLM side, clearly with such a frugal and non-Chinese, neither US model, clearly an opportunity to diversify the offer, and for a lot of people, and for me, part of the European champion we want to promote. And this is why, on these different tracks, the partnership between UK and France is, for me, critical, because we exactly face the same challenges. And teaming up together is the best way to have a critical mass when we speak about our talents, our labs, our key players, or our financing capacities.
Thank you very much. Well, I think you've touched on the competition in the space, in the AI space, and I think one of the key reasons for that as well is just the pace of innovation when it comes to AI. So perhaps, Demis, we could come to you and just kind of get your views on how you respond to that pace, and touching on some of the points just raised, what we need to be doing to not only keep up, but to get ahead.
Well, it's a very exciting time right now in AI, of course. The pace of progress has been incredible. But it's also a very serious moment. I think we're a very decisive moment. I've been working on AI for 20 plus years now. DeepMind was started more than 15 years ago. Almost nobody was working on AI then. Now the whole world is working on it.